Throughout history, different cultures reference a great war with worlds and species that we didn't even know existed. This war was known as Mortal Kombat.
The fate of Earth is in our hands.
Does that mean I'm gonna get superpowers at any point?
It's all real.
Has begun.
Well, if they want to fight, then let's give them warning.
It has begun.
You've been chosen.
For what?
For something known as Mortal Kombat.
The fate of Earth is in our hands.
Get over here!
Throughout history, different cultures all over the world reference a great tournament. That dragon marking? I think it's an invitation to fight for something known as Mortal Kombat.
I've always talked about respecting the material and respecting the fans. They all deserve to see their beloved characters elevated to this cinematic height.
This really comes across as a powerful experience that we haven't seen before. It's this grounded, dramatic, but violent tale.
What is so striking about Mortal Kombat is how expansive the story is. It's epic.
We have all the great characters that the fans love.
I'm Sonya.
Name's Jax.
That's Kano.
I'm Liu Kang.
Kung Lao.
Lord Raiden.
Scorpion.
I am Sub-Zero. The interesting thing about playing a video game character is that you have to walk this line of being larger than life, but also making that person real.
There's actually rich emotional life behind every single character.
We need to be authentic. You need actors who can perform the actual movements and stunts.
It's mind-blowing what they do. And I think that fight element that has always been in the game can be brought to life on the screen. And it's not all CG, I promise you.
No matter how many of my people you put in the ground, we will not fail.
I've always believed that something elegant and beautiful can cohabitate with brutal and primal. All of the detail gives the audience a sense of realism and connectivity to this world.
The first time that I started seeing all of these guys in costume, I was blown away. They've completely brought all of these characters to life.
This is more than just seeing a movie produced. This is seeing something that I've been passionate about my whole life finally come to the screen.
I love working on this kind of international project.
It really represents the Mortal Kombat world.
I hope it's both a reward for the fans and a new experience.
Don't be fooled that it's just a game. It's more than that. It's cinematic, it's beautiful, there's heart and there's emotion. All those ingredients together, it should be a fun, powerful ride. So enjoy.
Get over here!
Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be my new Mortal Kombat trailer video. They just released a whole bunch of new footage, so we'll break it all down. There's a bunch of Easter eggs, and we got some clarification on what's going on with the characters and where they're headed with the movies, like what's going on with this movie relative to the rest of the Mortal Kombat story. Because they are planning on making sequels if this is successful enough. There's enough Mortal Kombat mythology for them to do like 7 movies if they wanted to. They could go full Marvel Cinematic Universe with this if they really wanted to. I will be doing more videos for the movie as it comes out in theaters around the world, so be sure to subscribe to get everything. But if you've been watching the Mortal Kombat series for a long time, you've seen some of the classic series like Mortal Kombat Scorpion's Revenge, a lot of this story does turn around the idea of Scorpion and his relationship with Sub-Zero during the film. And here's actually a really big revelation. The movie itself is actually kind of like a prequel to what you would think of a traditional Mortal Kombat movie. Whereas, you go into a Mortal Kombat movie, they hype up the idea of this tournament that they're fighting to defend Earthrealm from Outworld and Shang Tsung. But in this movie, they're actually only working up to the events of the tournament. So it's more of an origin story for all the characters, including the Cole character, who's kind of like the main character of the film. Even though the movie's only being referred to as Mortal Kombat, technically the full title of the film is Mortal Kombat Resurrection, which is where we get into the whole Scorpion-Sub-Zero relationship. So just confirming some theories based on the footage that we've seen so far, you see this backstory in this fight between the original version of Scorpion and the original version of Sub-Zero. So they actually do show you Scorpion's origin story during the film. He lived hundreds of years ago, and he was the member of a rival clan of the original Sub-Zero, whose name was Bi-Han. So Bi-Han wants to kill him. He goes after his family. You see that play out in all this trailer footage. You see a lot of familiar Scorpion Easter eggs, like he picks up this spear that looks exactly like the weapon from his special attack that comes out of his hand later. He's eventually killed by Bi-Han in combat, and then basically winds up dying and passing into their version of the underworld, their version of hell, however you want to think about it, for hundreds of years. Then in present day, you meet this Cole character who's an MMA fighter. Like you see the yellow wraps around his hands. They're kind of implying that he is a descendant of the original Scorpion. And I believe the way they explain that is that Hanzo had a daughter who survived Sub-Zero's attack and was in hiding. So she went on to have a family of her own. So that's basically where the Cole character comes from. But he doesn't know anything about his backstory. He doesn't know anything about the Mortal Kombat tournament or this larger mythology. That's why they're sort of using him as a point of view character in this first new film in the Mortal Kombat series, what will hopefully be many Mortal Kombat movies, using him to introduce the main characters in the larger mythology, sort of spreading out from there. The same way the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies started out with the Iron Man film, you start out with the basic Earth-based main characters, then slowly and slowly you go more and more cosmic, eventually revealing Thanos, the whole Infinity Gauntlet storyline. You get to Avengers Infinity War, Avengers Endgame. The Mortal Kombat series does have their own version of that going on in the background. There are some familiar tropes too, like they even have their own version of the Infinity Stones that I'll explain in a second. But the first few movies is basically just them doing the initial storyline, like setting up the whole concept of the tournament, the main characters, why are they fighting in the tournament, what's going on with the multiverse, these other realms, who are the main antagonists, who's Shang Tsung, and who are the villains that are behind Shang Tsung. Like each villain serves another master who's more powerful. They teased that a little bit during this trailer footage, like you see Shao Kahn's statue, but you don't actually see Shao Kahn himself show up in the flesh. If you're a longtime Mortal Kombat fan, you already know most of this backstory, all the mythology, so you're probably confused about what's going on with the Cole person. But like I said, mostly there for newer viewers who aren't familiar with all the games, all the mythology. And even though they're only hyping up some of the core original characters, there are many other classic characters from the first few games that show up during the movie that you just don't really talk about too much during the footage. Like a lot of you did spot Reptile in the background of some of these shots. We see a little bit more footage with Prince Goro, Cabal, Raiko, Nitara, Mileena, all characters during the movie. But if you saw the original Mortal Kombat movies, like the first movie, then the second movie isn't quite so good, so you don't absolutely have to watch that. It is a bit of an endurance test for hardcore fans. But in the first movie, they basically do the storyline from the first few games. Then in the second movie, they do the next part of the story where you meet way more of the Outworld characters. You meet Shang Tsung's boss, Shao Kahn. You learn what his interest is in all this. Then I'm assuming if everything goes well with these Mortal Kombat sequels and they make enough money and they want to continue making movies, things will just slowly go more and more cosmic. There have been a couple retcons. They've introduced some really powerful cosmic characters in the more recent games. So I'll explain sort of the relationships really quickly here. So the basic story just starts out with a bunch of chosen characters that do have special powers, like magic does exist within the Mortal Kombat universe. It comes from this very cosmic source. You learn about a big tournament of realms that they have to fight in to save their universe, Earthrealm, from Shang Tsung and his master Shao Kahn in Outworld. There are many other realms, though, that obviously they'll probably introduce in other sequel movies. So Shang Tsung himself is a sorcerer who's working for Shao Kahn. Shao Kahn is the true ruler of Outworld, and he was formerly Outworld's version of Raiden. So within Earthrealm, Raiden is like a lesser god whose cosmic purpose, as ordained by the elder gods of the multiverse, is to be sort of an advisor for the chosen ones in each new instance of the Mortal Kombat tournament. So within the context of this movie, Mortal Kombat Resurrection, Raiden sort of explains what the stakes are and why they need to train and win this tournament. Shao Kahn is implied to be a lesser god too, as he's immortal, and he was sort of Outworld's version of Raiden until the former ruler of Outworld wound up dying. Shao Kahn took over, and now he's basically using Shang Tsung in his quest to conquer the other realms using the tournament. So the whole idea of the tournament was actually created by the Elder Gods to create this cosmic level of order in the multiverse. They're the ones that create all these rules that you sort of learn about during this first movie, like when you're allowed to attack the fighters from another universe. Then you have characters like Shang Tsung who are always trying to break the rules. So the Elder Gods are like a boss tier above the lesser gods like Raiden and Shao Kahn. The Elder Gods themselves were created by the one true god of the Mortal Kombat universe. Like if we're talking about Marvel Cinematic Universe comparisons, that would be the one above all. Characters so powerful that you never really see them, but they did exist at one point. Here's where we get to the Greek tragedy of it all. So the one true god created the Elder Gods in order to use them as a food source to sustain himself, and then eventually the Elder Gods wind up rebelling against him and breaking his essence into many different pieces, and those different pieces become the different realms of the multiverse, along with their version of the Infinity Stones. Within the Mortal Kombat universe, they call those the Kamidogu. So while you have all this tournament stuff going on, the machinations of the lesser gods, the elder gods, behind it all you have the essence of the one true god that's slowly trying to reform itself. So this one true god who was defeated by the elder gods wants to reform his body so that he can regain his control of the entire multiverse, which can only happen if all the realms were to merge. And the only way to do that is for one realm to defeat all the other realms in the tournament and collect all the Kamidogu, their Infinity Stones. The way the Elder Gods create all these rules, they try to make it impossible for that to happen. But you have other villains within the Mortal Kombat universe that try to break the rules in order to do that. The main antagonist of the entire series, at least up until recently, was this evil fallen Elder God called Chinook, who is crazy powerful but works more from behind the scenes, manipulating other characters. Like if we're talking about Scorpion and Sub-Zero, he has his own servant called Quan Chi, his own version of Shang Tsung, who's a sorcerer that's about as powerful as Shang Tsung, who winds up manipulating Bi-Han to kill Scorpion's family, setting up their whole rivalry. Chinook's whole goal is to take control of the entire multiverse, but in the very recent Mortal Kombat games, they actually just introduced beings even more powerful than the Elder Gods, called the Titans, and obviously more Greek mythology references here. In the new game, they reveal the Titans in the Mortal Kombat universe came before the Elder Gods, but because they're kind of a retcon addition to the mythology, the way they weave them in is that the lesser gods like Shao Kahn, Raiden, the other characters only thought the Titans were myths in the Mortal Kombat universe until they start to meet them in person. And the new main antagonist now of the entire series is actually one of these new Titan characters. They're supposed to be more powerful and more ancient than the Elder Gods. So as you can see with all sequels, things just keep escalating with each new game in the franchise. Eventually, I think the idea culminating in some sort of cosmic war of the gods, and that would be like the Mortal Kombat version of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. So maybe the film franchise, if it's successful enough, they'll be able to work up to something like that. So what's going to happen is the Mortal Kombat movie has actually been released in a couple international countries now, so some of you watching this may have actually seen the movie already. Please don't post spoilers in the comments. The movie's going to be released most places and on HBO Max on April 23rd in a couple weeks, so it's not that far away. But if you have any big questions about what's going on during the movie, this trailer footage, or big Easter eggs you want to talk about, just write them below in the comments. While you wait for everything, click here for my brand new Falcon and Winter Soldier Episode 4 trailer video, and click here for my full